Hey guys, what's up? I did it. Oh, please, I didn't even tell you what I did. Yeah, so I broke my hand. Nobody? So basically, yeah, I was hanging these blinds, I stripped a bolt, I got off the ladder, and I punched this chair. And I fractured this bone. You may have noticed in my last video on Red Dead Redemption... Oh wait, nobody watched that video? Okay, that's fine.
Hello darkness, my old friend.
But I was sporting one of these hand braces. And yeah, having a broken hand really impeded my ability to play video games. Especially ones that required precision shooting and quick reflexes. So yeah, basically any game I would usually play. It was pretty tricky to do. I'm not gonna let a little fractured bone impede on my childish desires to play video games every night. So I had to get a little creative with the types of games that I would be playing. So today, I compiled a list of 5 games that I think are the best to play when you have a broken hand. Let's roll. I'm going to be starting this video off with a bit of a curveball. I'm going to be lumping Jurassic Park Evolution 1 and 2 together. Because essentially they are the same game, just released a couple years apart. At its roots, Jurassic Park Evolution is similar to other park building games, such as Roller Coaster Tycoon and Planet Zoo. Except instead of roller coasters and exotic animals, you have lab-created man-eating monsters that you have to build enclosures for and keep happy, or else they're gonna run wild and wreak havoc on your guests. These 2 games are your ultimate John Hammond fantasy. In each game, you're tasked with building parks on different islands and researching newer and more profitable dinosaurs to your park. Now, I mentioned that these 2 games are very similar. If I had to pick one between Jurassic World Evolution 1 and Jurassic World Evolution 2 to replay, I'm probably picking 1. The campaigns work pretty similar, where you're building these different parks on different islands. Each island really exhibits its own obstacles and hurdles to overcome, such as bad weather, or maybe the island's really small, so you have to like really be efficient with where you're placing enclosures. But in the first game, as you complete one park and you move on to the next park, there's still an incentive to go back to your old park, because your old park has its own revenue where you can complete the research and apply that research to your newer parks that you're building. But in the second game, you're basically playing the campaign of all the different Jurassic Parks and how it evolved into like the Lost World, the San Diego park that never came to be. You're building that up. But in the second game, all the progress you made in your first Jurassic Park that you built, it really has no effect on the second island that you start, because you start over and all the research, you need to do it again, and it doesn't flow as nicely as the first one. Whereas in the second game, you know, I would get my one park to 5 stars, which would take like an hour, and then I had no incentive to return to that park. I was just moving on to the next one and just starting over from square one. But all in all, these games were pretty easy to play with one hand. Well, I was still using this hand. Just, you know, I was using WASD to move the camera around, and then, you know, I would try to angle the camera using WASD, so I didn't really have to click and move my hand that much to click. But all in all, the 90s kid in me who grew up watching the Jurassic Park movies, it is a dream come true to be able to manage and operate these parks. So for that reason, I give these 2 games a broken thumbs up. Evil Genius 2. Now I'm going to be frank, I didn't even know there was an Evil Genius 1 when it came out. And I was not hyped at all when Evil Genius 2 came out, because again, I didn't even know that game existed. So essentially this game is, you're a James Bond villain.
I am Ernst Stavro Blofeld.
Or like a Dr. Evil simulator.
Gentlemen, I have a plan.
You pick between a few different evil geniuses, each that have their own slight variation on how they manipulate their minions. You build up your evil layer, and essentially you just progress through the game to the point that you control the world. You start off with nothing, and you slowly grow from just a few minions, and you send those minions out to the world map. You take on missions, but really the missions just boil down to you having the right amount of minions and resources needed, and then clicking go. And then you go back to your base. And that's where the issues start to come up towards the end game, because your base at this point is set up, and it's basically just go to this world map, click on a mission, click go, rinse, repeat, until you shoot a big laser, and literally the game's just like, hey, you won. With all that considered, I really did enjoy this game, and I would recommend it if you see it on sale in Steam. So for those reasons, I give it a broken thumbs, like sideways. Not quite all the way down, because I did have fun, but I just can't justify a full thumbs up. Frostpunk. So in this game, you play as a bunch of survivors from the 1800s London, and you guys venture out of the city because a massive ice age has hit the world, and the whole world is now just covered with snow, and there's nothing remaining. As the game opens, you find your survivors dragging out this massive generator, and they plop it down, and from there, from that generator, you build out your city. Now this generator is extremely important because it produces heat. And this game is cold. And when I'm talking cold, I'm talking ice cold. There are no real enemies. Your number one enemy is the weather. And the weather only gets colder and colder. Yes, occasionally, you'll have a little ticker and a forecast up at the top that tells you when the temperature's about to dip or when the temperature is about to rise, but it never rises back up to the level where you started. What you used to think was cold is now your warm temperature. And you just have to keep upgrading your town and its insulation and heating supplies and heating technology to keep your citizens productive. So it's a really fun twist on the city builder game genre. And as I'm filming this video, Frostpunk 2 is about to be released. And honestly, by the time I'm done editing this video, because I got a bum hand, it'll probably have already released. So I'm excited to try that new adventure. And then on top of all of that, you will be tasked with making some very difficult decisions. And your first instinct might be to be the nice guy. If you're a guy who plays a game and you always like to take the honorable path, it might actually be shooting you in the foot. Like for example, I had a few waves of these survivors from another town try to immigrate into my country. And at first I was like, oh my god, these guys are freezing, some of them are sick, I'll take them all in. And then what happened was all my medical facilities were occupied and busy treating all these sick individuals I brought in, and it really hampered my town. So when the second wave of survivors came and I noticed even more of them were sick and there were less survivors, I cast out all the sick individuals because I am a sick individual. And you know what? There wasn't really much repercussion for me doing that. My little hope meter took a little hit, but other than that, I was fine and the town did okay. But don't get me wrong, just doing the evil deeds won't get you by. This game is very difficult. I can't tell you how many times I scum saved because I had put myself in a corner that I could not escape. My town was doomed. Just take a look at these save files I have. Like, yeah, come on, this is the one, you got it. You can tell just by what I was naming my saves, there was a battle. And you know what? This game wasn't all that hard to play with a broken hand. Again, I was able to use WASD to control the camera, and I could just kind of maneuver the camera so that I didn't have to move my hand that much with the mouse. So the fact that I could do that, plus the game was a lot of fun, I give it 2 broken thumbs out of, well, I only have 1 broken thumb. Aliens Dark Descent. I am a huge fan of the Alien franchise. And when I say Alien franchise, I mean the first 2. There have been countless games, movie spin-offs, comic books, and all other kinds of media tied to this franchise. But none of them has spoken to me quite like Alien Dark Descent. In this game, you play as an entire squad of Marines at once. You don't directly control where they're shooting, but you are controlling their movement as a squad, maneuvering your way through these dark corridors. And even though the game is played from this top-down perspective, it provided a level of horror that I haven't really experienced in too many other games. And I think that horror stems from the fact that there is perma-death. Each time you launch a mission, you go out with 5 Marines to tackle a mission, and it's possible that none of them will return. So basically the story to this game is, it starts off on this big old ship, and the big old ship gets compromised. You crash land on this alien planet, and it's your job to get off the planet before it explodes because there's some kind of self-destruct button on your ship or something. I don't know. I didn't really pay too much attention to the story. We're here to shoot aliens, right? Not listen to a story. But the story's good. I'm sure it's good. I'm not gonna, take points away or broken thumbs away from it, because of the story. I like the story. But the fact that the planet is set to be destroyed means there's an end game clock that you're fighting against. Every time you set out on a mission, a day passes. And you can either go out on missions to progress the story or go on missions to collect valuable resources. And these resources are what you use to upgrade the Marines that you go out with. And it's very hard for those Marines to get experience. And then once they get experience, you can use those limited resources that you've gathered to upgrade them. But if you spend all these resources and points on somebody and they just get dragged away by an alien, they're dead. Those resources are gone. That Marine, who is technically a resource, is gone. And it really creates this tense atmosphere that you have to overcome in order to complete the game. And those squads that you create are completely customizable. From their appearance to their name. I love naming them after my coworkers and my friends and family, just to give it a little bit more impact for when Barbara Carl Dillon gets dragged away by an alien. Rest in peace. I love you. But again, since you're not directly controlling the Marines and where they're shooting, you're just kind of clicking on what you want them to interact with in the world, or clicking on where you want them to move or take position and hide. This game was fairly easy to play with a broken hand, and it was really exhilarating at the same time. So for that reason, I'm giving this game a broken thumbs up. Baldurs Gate 3. This game changed me as a man. Before this, I fucking hated turn-based strategy games. Final Fantasy, get out of here. That new Yakuza game where it's turn-based strategy, get out of here. But Baldurs Gate 3? Alright, come on into my castle, sit down, have a Coors Light. Where's my Coors Light? Me and my couple friends decided to pick this game up after we saw the trailer for it back in April. Or when did the game come out? August of last year? Was it a year ago? When did that game come out? I don't know. I didn't do my research. But we got that game brand new when it came out. And I have put about 20 minutes into this game by myself. The rest of it, I've played with my boys on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. I do stream on Twitch at Eddie Talks Too Much. You know, feel free to come join us sometime. I try to be consistent in streaming. No, I don't. But we've put in over 70 hours into this game, and we still have yet to beat it. There are so many little choices that have ripple effects into the story later on. Almost to the point where I can't even tell if something is happening because it's a decision I made earlier on, or it's just some crazy thing that's happening in the game. Now granted, we did have more fun with this game in Act 1 and a little bit into Act 2, where the developers put a little bit more time and energy into the branching storylines and how your decisions would have effects on later parts of the game. We have been stuck in a bit of a limbo in Act 3. We're struggling to complete the game because we feel like we're just meandering around, not really accomplishing anything. But basically how this game works is you escape the mind flayer, and you've been implanted with like a little worm in your brain, and it's basically your quest to get this worm out of your brain so that you can go on being whatever you were before the mind flayer picked you up. And we engage in increasingly more difficult battles. And that's one of the issues and one of the hang-ups why we haven't completed the game yet. We've gotten to the point where battles are so epic and challenging, they take up most of the night. So we're pretty exhausted by the end and we're ready to shoot something, and then we usually wind up playing Helldivers. But I always viewed this game as like a big board game that I get to play with my friends. That's because every decision or every action is determined by a roll, like a roll of the dice. And again, this is another game that is super easy to play, although I can find myself on the edge of my seat towards the end of an epic battle. I'm not required to have quick reflexes or quick movements to get through these battles, which makes it easy to play the game when you have a broken hand. So again, Baldurs Gate earns itself a nice broken thumbs up. I'd give it 2 broken thumbs up, but the way the story kind of drags on in the 3rd act and it's not as engaging as the 1st act, it loses that 1 broken thumb. Sorry. Not sorry. So yeah, that's my video on the top 5.5 games that I would recommend playing if you have a broken, specifically right hand. Have you ever broken a part of your body that inhibits your ability to play video games? Let me know down in the comments down below. If you're new to the channel, I appreciate you making it this far. If you could hit, the like button and the subscribe button, that would be much appreciated. YouTube is how I support my family and feed my children, so it is greatly appreciated. And if you haven't done it yet, please check out my Red Dead Redemption video. Like, none of you fucking watched it. It's fine. I'm not bitter about it. It's just that I'm like...
There's just nothing coming together. Don't stop and look stupid like some thick cow.
Like, I was literally about to wrap it up and then you kind of interrupted me.
Yeah, now you're just acting like a fucking idiot, yes?
Fuck off, you fat, useless sack
I'll
of
do
fucking
it now.
Yankee dude.
Okay.
Shite.
Thanks.
Fuck off.